All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So for everyone that is not aware, my name is Todd Smith. I'm the CTO here at Center. Been here for almost 15 years now, which is pretty crazy to think about. Lately, last month, we decided to host our first webinar for our managed services and co-managed services clients to help go over the different tool sets that we utilize and then also different technologies so we can help you guys out and help you manage your IT environment. So today we'll be covering DNSFilter. I guess here's my little pretty intro slide here. We've got some guests. So today I've invited Jesse from DNSFilter. Be talking shortly, as well as Sam. And so some of you may be wondering why we chose DNSFilter. So there were several reasons. Previously, we were utilizing Cisco Umbrella. Cisco decided so it was previously OpenDNS. They decided to end of life their previous roaming client. They also, when they decided to do this, they didn't really give an upgrade path. So no matter what, we were going to have to rip and replace the roaming client with something else, whether it was their new product or a different solution. On top of that, Cisco hadn't really evolved and improved that product. There was a lot of shortcomings with it, so we decided to reevaluate. So we evaluated several different solutions, came across DNSFilter. Some of the reasons that we decided to partner with them and move forward with it, they offer a lot better reporting, especially when it comes to multi-tenancy. That was something we weren't really able to do through Cisco Umbrella. They have a lot better APIs that we can utilize. So we're able to perform a lot of different automations. We can centrally collect and report data, and it's a lot better with integrations with our other tool sets. So it works a lot better because of those APIs. Their roaming client is also much easier to deploy, and it's a lighter weight roaming client, lighter weight agent. So it uses less resources on the endpoint. One other little side thing was their policies are a little different. They have the capability to where you can actually have multiple policies for IoT devices that you might not be able to deploy a roaming client to. So that was one other thing. I'm sure they'll cover that today as well. And here's their website, just giving you some basic information about them. Ultimately, let's see. So we have a Q&A. Make sure if you do have some questions, feel free to post there. We'll try to answer them throughout. We also have several other attendees from Center on here to help respond to questions as well. If we don't see them, they might be able to reply to you faster than we can get to it. We do have a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. Feel free to look us up there, subscribe. We have a lot of good content. All of our other webinars and lunch and learns that we posted are there. And then next month, we plan on hosting yet another webinar for you guys. We plan on covering Intune, so the basics, how to set up autopilot, policies, application. Without further ado, I'd like to kick it off to the DNSFilter team. And then we can dive in and do some training.
You bet. My name's Jesse. I'm a quality engineer with DNSFilter. Stepping in here for Sam, who seems to have some technical difficulties. So I guess I'll be kind of walking you guys through our dashboard. It's kind of just a demo environment and how our tool works and how to navigate our dashboard. So let's see. So if you're not familiar, this is our main dashboard overview. Assuming you guys can see my screen. I'm not familiar with Teams. Okay.
We are able to see it. Thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, in the general overview, you'll see top level stats like total DNS requests, how many are allowed, how many have been blocked, threats. You can see a graph of requests over time with those same metrics. You'll get an idea of about how many users and roaming clients, and then a rough top domains by request, which is always nice just to keep an eye out for high-level traffic, along with any sites that you have configured and their traffic volumes. So really good high-level overview. Going down the list here on the left-hand side, we'll start with our policies. So this is the core of how we keep endpoints protected. You can create a new policy or edit an old one. And within here, you'll see the content categories that we support blocking on. You can select any of these, and this is real-time updating. So aside from local DNS cache, this is immediate changing. As soon as you click that, the policy is updated, and you're now blocking whatever you selected.
And that was another thing that we liked about the product. Typically, we could see anywhere from 5-10 minute delays with when we're utilizing Umbrella, making any changes like that.
Yeah, this is, as far as on our side, it is literally immediate. Sometimes a browser can hold cache, so there is like some wait time there, or closing and opening the browser again, but that's kind of outside our control. And then going down the list on the top here, we have safe search, so you can enforce safe search on all the popular search engines, Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, YouTube even. Going down to threats, these are our threat categories. We typically recommend having all of these enabled, maybe with the exception of new domains. So if you're typically seeing that your clients are reaching out to domains and they're having issues with domains that have been created in the last 30 days, you can allow this. We also have a very new domains. So anything created within the last 24 hours, you probably should be blocking. But there is some contention on the last 30 days if you want to allow that or not.
And typically, whenever we get a request that comes in, most often it is a new domain within the last 30 days that we've had to go in and allow. So typically, if there is some troubleshooting you do, and one of the things Jesse can cover, that is one area that you may have to make some adjustments or add to an allow list.
And then we have our app aware buckets. So these are pre-curated buckets that encompass an entire app. So say slack.com. If you wanted to block Slack, the Slack app doesn't just use slack.com. It uses a bunch of resources and domains. So we have curated lists that block those apps completely. And this is really good for GenII or mail apps like SendGrid, Yahoo. If you wanted to block all of Discord, Facebook Messenger, these are very useful buckets of domains that will completely block those applications.
One thing to note on here, I think there is it technology? There's one of these, who owns LastPass? Man, I'm going blank, but there's one that we blocked. I want to say it was like, is it Remote PC or Log Me In? It's Log Me In. We had Log Me In blocked on here. It did block LastPass. So that was one other thing that you may encounter an issue with if you try to block Log Me In, and your employees and team do utilize and you allow LastPass, it may block that as well. I think that was if you scroll up, I think it was under the ecosystem applications.
Yeah, Log Me In.
Log Me In. There it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're tied to these orgs, you may see impacts to apps that those organizations own. Definitely good call out. And then we just have our allow and block lists. We would definitely recommend any tools that you guys use on a normal basis. Definitely go ahead and put those in here just in case there is some kind of new subdomain for X platform that you're using that gets blocked. Already having that top level domain in the allow list. And let me kind of clarify that a little bit. So if you add an allow list entry for google.com, every subdomain for google.com will then be automatically allowed. So if you have a top level domain that you trust and you're going to be using that, adding that to the allow list is definitely advised. And the same with the block list. If you were to block, say, ESPN.com, every subdomain of ESPN would then be blocked. So, yeah.
For the block list, you can block like a root level domain like Russia, right? Like RU.
Yep. And all you would do is just type RU in here, and that would block any .ru domain. Yeah, super helpful if you're trying to block those. I know some people were doing IO, even though it's becoming a lot more popular lately.
Yeah. We have a universal list that has our tool sets on here so that we maintain. So that's pushed from our MSP parent tenant to every one subtenant. So you do inherit those universal lists that do include our tools.
And then we have some advanced features here. So this is our NAT IP feature. So this is kind of what you alluded to, where directly from the network forwarding, you can set a NAT IP to get a specific policy. So you would just forward traffic to any of these local resolver IPs, and then it would apply this policy. Essentially. So pretty cool feature there. And then some of our extra settings, or these are more of our workshop things, are ad tracking blocking. This is under extra settings as more of an experimental feature because when you do block ads, resources don't load right sometimes, and you'll sometimes get tickets about, hey, I can't reach this site, or this site's not loading correctly, because we are blocking some of those needed ad domains.
So I believe our default policy, we do block moderate ads. The most common ticket we get is a lot of people apparently use Google to type in the website they're trying to get to, and it's usually one of the sponsored ads at the top. Those we do block because oftentimes a bad actor may actually pay a large sum of money to be that top sponsored ad and spoof a website. So that is one of the reasons we do block that.
Yep. And then under here as well, we have park sites and domains. So this is any site that maybe is not hosted, or just like a GoDaddy web page, something like that. We do have our AI sometimes gets overzealous and just sees an IIS portal and says it's parked, even though it's probably a content server. So if you ever see anything like that, definitely report it to us. We're more than happy to recategorize those as needed. Yeah, and then unknown or uncategorized sites. This is also one that's not always recommended, just because if it's a site we haven't seen before, it could be safe. We would have it set as uncategorized. So if you block uncategorized, you're probably more often than not going to get a lot of feedback from your users saying, hey, this site I think is good, but it's blocking it because it's uncategorized. So just be prepared if you do enable that. There might be a little bit more of a overhead. All right, moving down, we have filtering schedules, which is pretty simple. You can just set up a schedule and add policies to those times. So if you only wanted to block your users certain periods of times a day, you could set a policy for, this time, and then set a different policy for another time, or no policy during that time. It's completely up to you.
Yeah, like we've had a client that wanted to block social media during business hours, but during break hours, like during lunch, they allowed it. So for that, we were able to customize that based off their schedule and only allow social media during those break hours.
And then last, we have your block page, where you can set up your custom block page with your company's logo, and then whatever email you want those requests to come through. So when they hit the block page, they will see something like this. And they'll have a little click here notification where they can say, hey, I think that this is incorrect. And this email here is where those will go to. So typically your support email or whoever's managing your policies.
Yep. So we have a default policy that you're welcome to utilize. That would actually go to our team where we'll manage that for you. If one of your end users submits a request, we'll evaluate the page, determine if it should be allowed or not. More than likely, we're going to reach out to our primary contact and get authorization if we can allow that site or not. But you also do have the ability to customize and create your own, so you can direct those requests direct to your IT team and your support email address.
Yep. And then if you do host some kind of page that you would prefer your users to hit instead of our custom block page, we do have a 302 redirect. So you can redirect this to any page that you host if you'd prefer your users to be served that instead. Completely customizable by you. Moving down the row here, we've got our deployment section, and under that we have our sites. So these are going to be all the networks that you manage. The first thing you'll see under here is that you can assign your policy that you created and your block page to that site. And then you will typically put in every single egress IP that is coming from that site. So you're sending traffic to us. We need to know what that IP is in order to apply that policy correctly. So if sometimes your traffic goes out of a backup egress IP, we wouldn't recognize that if you didn't have that in our portal. So it's important to put every single egress IP from that network here.
So earlier when I mentioned the benefits and the APIs and automation, so that's something that we will do for our clients as well. So by default, if there's a new IP that is not in there from, let's say you have a Meraki firewall or even a server, we're pulling in that data on a regular basis. And if we detect a server that has an IP that's using a public IP for internet traffic that's not on here, we'll automatically add it. Same with the firewall external gateway IP. If we detect the change or something new, we'll add that on here. You also have the ability to use dynamic DNS, which Meraki utilizes. So if you have an active and a passive, like a primary and a backup circuit, you could just put the dynamic DNS name in here, and then it would automatically update based on which one's active. Very helpful.
And then we have our roaming clients section. So by default, these roaming clients will come with the policy that was assigned at the site level. They'll just inherit that policy. But you can also set your policy at the roaming client level. So you can edit individual roaming clients or select multiple and select which policy you want for that individual roaming client, along with block page. These are available for iOS, Mac, Chrome OS, Android. All have individual clients. Very easy to install. If you're installing silently through an RMM or any of those, we have very good detailed guides on that in our knowledge base. So the install process is pretty simple. You'll just select a site that you want to tie that roaming client to, and then you will get a security key, and you will install that agent with that security key. And that's just ties it back to that site, so it knows what policy and info to grab. But overall, very simple deployment.
It is important to note for the roaming client for the mobile, it is so we include DNSFilter for iOS. I'm sorry, for Mac OS and Windows. If you need it for a mobile device, there is a little bit of an add-on, but it's pretty minimal, and that can allow you to utilize the mobile licensing.
Mm-hmm. And with iOS specifically, it does require the devices to be fully managed by an MDM. Unsupervised devices are just not supported with how the security works on iOS. Other than this, you can fully select all these and edit them as needed. You can change them to different policies as stated before. We can even, if they're Windows or Mac, you can update their release version, their release channel. So if you wanted to put a couple of devices on our beta channel to test out new features, that's always appreciated, if especially if you have feedback to provide us on our beta channel. We're always looking for that. And then the last thing in this roaming client management section is our cleanup tool. So sometimes you'll see devices get kind of cleaned up and kind of tossed in a closet or something, and they didn't really get properly removed. So our cleanup tool basically just says, hey, if a client hasn't sent any DNS traffic to us in the last 90 days, say, go ahead and find those and then remove them from the portal. So it's a nice little tool to get rid of those old devices.
That's something that we will do also on a regular basis. We'll each month we're going to remove any that haven't checked in for less 60 days. This is a cleanup.
Moving down the list here, we have our relay, which is, you can think of our relay as a network-wide roaming client. It's a device you can spin up. It runs on Windows, Linux. You can put it on a Raspberry Pi even. And what this does is you point DNS to this device and it sends traffic to us just like a roaming client would. So that means you can apply a policy to it, a certain block page, and we can get information like the private IP address. So you can set policies by IP address range. So if you have certain subnets that certain users are on, you can apply policies that way. Really nice tool if you don't want to put an endpoint on every device, but you still want that user level or device level policy. On the line here, we have our collections, so we can sync up your intra directory or your local on-site directory to import users. And what this allows us to do is apply policies by group. So you can have, say, your security team has an X policy, or your students have a more restrictive policy, and you can apply policies at that level by AD groups. And we just have our users page. So anytime a roaming client or we sync with your AD, those get populated here, and you can apply policies directly at the user level as well. So you can see by default they inherit their policy from the roaming client, but you can also specify those here and makes it so that you can have, even on the same device, different policies for different users. So, pretty easy to manage there. The sync tool is just like we said, that AD tool that pulls all your groups and users up to us to managing collections. And then lastly is our local domains section. So this is when you have our roaming client on, we take over DNS. And so what this does is it allows you to specify your local domains, especially if they're like split DNS and in .com or .net, those type of things. And set them to point toward your local resolvers, so they're not resolving publicly. This is very recommended that you set these up typically before you deploy roaming clients. That way you're not breaking that local domain trust that you need, or those local resources that your users need. And you can add as many local domains here as you need, as well as local resolvers. If you have multiple tertiary backup resolvers, as many as you need here, you can add. All right. Any questions before I jump into the reporting section?
Doesn't look like it. Oh, wait, we got one. So Chris Crowder asked, is there any failback to a secondary resolver in case the roaming computer can't communicate with DNSFilter due to blocking?
Yeah, so in the event that the roaming client cannot hit our resolvers, there's a health check that happens. And when the roaming client can't hit our resolvers, it will fall back to whatever was set on the interface prior to us taking over.
And then even on the local resolvers, you can have multiple listed there as well.
Yes. Okay. So first we have our insights report. This is usually the most useful at-a-glance information. So you can get the graph that shows you, spikes and threats that you're getting. You can set this the time for up to the last 90 days, depending on your plan type. And then you just get a breakdown of like the top domains and their categories. So mostly content servers here. That's pretty normal. If you had a big spike of a threat category, that would be something to watch out for. This list will just show your top domains, kind of like we saw in the overview, but this is going to be a section where you can drill into those a little bit more. So we see apple.com here has a ton of requests. We can drill into that. We can see requests over time, and we can see all the subdomains for Apple that are hitting, and if they were allowed or blocked. So we can look for threats under that category. Really just a way to dive in and see what traffic is causing issues. If you have something in mind that you're looking for, this is a really good place to go. If a user was having some issues with a particular domain that wasn't loading, you wanted to see if something was blocked for, say, slack.com, go into slack.com, blocked. No, nothing was blocked. Okay. This is a pretty good tool for that. Then you can also search just by threats. So if you wanted to see what was being blocked over the last 24 hours, you can drill into that data and see why it was blocked, or if you have any concerns with what was blocked. AppAware is those buckets. So this is the same insights reporting, but it's for those application buckets that we talked about earlier. See how many requests you have that are tied to each of these applications, and if they were blocked or allowed. And if the traffic is coming from a roaming client specifically, you can really drill in and get that detailed level. The DNS query log is probably by far the best tool to use for troubleshooting. If your users are reporting that stuff is blocked or stuff is allowed, this is the raw query data that we're getting, and it shows you the result of each query, what site it came from, what user it came from. And we have the option over here, if you click the three dots, to allow or block that domain straight from this page without going back to the policy page, which is really nice. So if we wanted to, block facebook.com, all we would do is click these three dots and add to block list. And then we would select which policy we want to apply that to, and we're done. This is really good for filtering. So if you had a particular, say, user, you can search by username, and you can see exactly what that user's traffic was for an X period of time, see what was blocked, see what was allowed. This is a really good tool for, like I said, mainly troubleshooting what's going on. It's not going to give you that high level view like the other ones do. And if you want,
Yeah, the advanced filters we utilize quite a bit. But yeah, this is where we do a lot of the troubleshooting. If someone's saying something's not loading right, we'll look at the time period and try to figure out what might be causing it.
Yep. And you can also export this to CSV if needed. Depending on the size of the query, it will take a little bit longer, but exporting this is just go straight to your email once you're done. Scheduled reports is a great feature. So it's basically a threat report summary. We can go in and get a preview of this. So scheduled report is just this one summary, basically, and you can set this up for all your sub organizations. You can set it up to go to whoever you like, and it will just repeat on a regular cadence, whatever you specify. But it will just give you a high level breakdown of how much stuff was blocked, how many threats were blocked, what were your top domains, what was the top categories you guys searched. So just a really good, like I would say, like a CEO report, like just top level, what's going on, quick information. Some other just kind of poking around here. There's Data Explorer, which lets you drill in by domain, user, category. If you're looking for information like that. Another one that's exportable by PDF and CSV. So it's a lot of the same information you see in Insights, but with this page, it's exportable to view outside of our app. Total requests is going to be a graph. It just shows you kind of metrics on the total volume. You can break that down by site, roaming client, or relay. Queries per second. Again, just an overall volume trend, just to see if maybe something's going wrong. You see 2 million queries per second, stuff is on fire, or just to see activity like, hey, we haven't seen any queries from this site in 3 days. What's going on? There must be something not forwarding appropriately. So good report to have. Get most active sites here. Again, this is just that top level overview that we show in the overview page. Top requests and threats. So these are going to be your top threats. And you can break that down by whatever date period you like. Just go over a couple of tools here quickly. Tools, you'll also see our DNS query log, which was already in reporting and we went over. We have our data export, which is an add-on, and it lets you export that query log data straight to an S3 bucket or Splunk or any HTTP event collector. We have our policy audit log. So if somebody was changing a policy, you could go in here and see who changed that policy and when and what they changed. So that change that we just added for, where I added RU, it's right here. And it gives you a timestamp and who did that. Very good for trying to figure out, hey, something was blocked and now it's not blocked anymore type scenarios. Our debug page is here, which is just a link that you can hit on any device that shows you, hey, what are we currently blocking with our policy? So you can hit this from any device, and if they're forwarding to us, it should reflect their current policy. And that's just debug.dnsfilter.com. And then the last thing here is our SSL cert. So if you're doing a network deployment and you want them to redirect to our block page successfully, the SSL certificate is required. This comes pre-installed with our roaming clients, but obviously for anything we're not doing endpoint protection on, you would have to push this out either via MDM or through group policy. We have several deployment methods. Anybody have any questions on any of that?
Doesn't look like it, which usually means we're doing a phenomenal job on the presentation. That's always how I take that.
All right. Well, that
What about, I think, the domain report? Have you covered that? Very bottom left. So, like, if
oh right.
somebody just wants to look up a quick domain and see how it is categorized, yeah.
hmm Yeah. So if you just wanted to look up a domain and see how it's categorized currently, you can do that. If you believe this is inaccurate, um, you can definitely report that to us with these 3 links. If you think it's not supposed to be tied to a specific app and app aware, or you actually think that this is a threat, you can use any of these links. You can also use this to also add directly to your block and allow lists. Um, if you want to, this will also show you if it's currently on any block or allow list on any of your policies. So, and then another awesome feature is it shows you any CNAMEs, and you can dig into those and whether they're blocked or allowed. So, really cool
Yeah.
feature.
Yeah, that's been really helpful troubleshooting some other issues where CNAME happened to be blocked on a site. Excellent.
Other than that, that's our dashboard in a nutshell.
All right. Are there any exciting features or anything that you guys are able to share? Anything coming out soon, perhaps? Like that?
Yeah, we're currently working on our MSP management rework portal. So all of these features that you see in the sub organization level, we're working on bringing those up to the MSP level, so that you can manage a bunch of your customers networks without going through 20 clicks. So that's an exciting feature we're looking to bring. We also have updates to our macOS and Windows roaming clients coming very soon, which we're ecstatic about. Um, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys very much again for jumping on and helping us out today. If there's anyone for our clients that have someone else on your team that might have missed that wants to see this, it will be recorded and we'll share that link out and also have it on our YouTube channel. Last chance for any other questions. All right. And again, stay tuned. There'll be another email coming out with the registration for our Intune webinar coming up. But thank you all so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thanks.